All right, so, we love to go deep on fascinating books, and you all sent in a ton of excerpts from Angela Duckworth's Grit,
Grit. Yeah.
a real popular one.
It's
So,
huge bestseller.
the mission for this deep dive is let's figure out what Duckworth is really saying about this whole grit thing.
Yeah.
What are the benefits?
Mm-hmm.
But also, you know, is there another side to
Right.
this?
Are there some downsides?
Yeah,
Certainly.
exactly. To
Yeah.
think about.
So, before we jump into anecdotes and stuff, let's just, quickly recap like the core idea here.
Yeah, sure.
So it's basically this idea that grit, this combination of passion and perseverance, that's a stronger predictor of success than like just natural talent.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me when I was rereading those excerpts is how it's not just about, you know, being enthusiastic at the beginning.
Yeah.
It's about that sustained commitment over time.
Yeah.
It's like years of sticking with something.
Like a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And she makes this really interesting point that effort counts twice, you know?
Talent times effort equals skill.
Okay.
But then you have to multiply that skill by effort again
Uh,
to get to achievement.
I see. So it's not just enough to have the talent. You got to put in the work to hone that talent.
And then you got to put in even more work to actually achieve something with that skill.
Right. It's like that compounding effect.
Exactly.
Now, I think one of the things that people find so appealing about this whole concept of grit is that it seems like something that you can develop.
Yes.
It's not just something you're born with, right?
It's not predetermined,
Yeah. So based on the excerpts, what are some of the things that Duckworth suggests for actually cultivating more grit?
Well, she talks about fostering curiosity, really being interested in what you're doing,
Yeah, makes sense.
and then deliberate practice, like not just going through the motions,
Right.
but really focusing on your weaknesses and getting feedback and improving.
I think of it like a musician,
Yeah.
who's got that one really tricky part of a song.
Yeah.
They don't just play the whole song over and over again. They just keep practicing that one little part.
Exactly. We're focusing on where you need to grow.
Yeah. And she also talks about purpose, right?
Yeah. Yeah, having a sense of why you're doing something.
Yeah, why does this matter?
Exactly. That can really fuel that long-term commitment.
Mm-hmm. And this all kind of ties into that growth mindset idea.
Totally. Believing that you can actually improve and develop your abilities.
Right, that it's not fixed.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we can probably all think of examples of people who maybe weren't the most naturally gifted,
Mm-hmm.
but they achieved amazing things through just sheer grit.
Totally.
Do you have anyone in mind, like, no names or anything, but someone who really exemplifies that idea of sticking with something?
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of someone in a really competitive field who faced tons of rejection early on.
Okay.
Like just constant no's.
Brutal.
But instead of giving up, they really analyzed each setback,
Wow.
adjusted their approach, and just kept going for years and years.
It paid off.
And eventually,
Yeah.
they achieved a huge amount of success.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really inspiring.
So, we've talked a lot about the upside of grit, but I think it's also really important to talk about some of the
The flip
Def-
there.
the potential downside.
Yeah, the limitations of this idea.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that kind of give you pause about focusing too much on just grit?
I think a really crucial point is, what about all the factors that are outside of our control?
Right.
Opportunity, privilege, systemic barriers. These can all have a massive impact on someone's ability to achieve their goals,
Absolutely.
no matter how much grit they have.
Yeah.
So if we just focus on individual grit, we kind of risk overlooking all of those wider societal influences.
Right. It's not always a level playing field.
Exactly.
What else worries you about an overemphasis on grit?
Well, there's the danger of just grinding away at something unproductively,
Okay.
right? Perseverance is important, but not if you're stuck in a rut. If your approach is flawed or if the goal just isn't relevant anymore, you need to be able to adapt.
To pivot.
To pivot, yeah. And I think there's also this potential for self-blame.
Oh, yeah.
If we say that success is all about grit, then if someone isn't achieving their goals, they might start to feel like it's their fault.
That they're not gritty enough.
Yeah, and that's not always fair. There might be other factors at play.
Absolutely.
So it's not a simple equation.
Right. Grit is not the only ingredient.
Exactly.
So it seems like, while this passion and perseverance are super important,
Yeah.
we also need to kind of balance that with an awareness of the bigger picture,
Yeah, and with self-reflection and the ability to adapt.
to be flexible.
To be flexible, yeah.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up our deep dive into grit,
Mm-hmm.
the key takeaways, I think, are that, long-term passion and perseverance, they can have a huge impact on achieving ambitious goals.
Yeah.
And that these qualities can be developed.
Right.
But we also need to, look at things critically. Consider the external factors, the importance of adaptability, and, the potential pitfalls of just like relentless effort without taking a step back.
Yeah. Without reflection.
Yeah. So to kind of bring this back to, our listeners,
Right.
achieving goals, it's complex.
Yeah. It's not a simple formula.
It's not just about how much grit you have.
It's an interplay between your own drive and, the circumstances you're in.
And how you navigate those circumstances.
Oh, exactly.
So here's a question to kind of leave you with.
Mm-hmm.
As you're pursuing your own goals, how do you find that balance,
Yeah.
between that passionate pursuit and then also being realistic about the world around you?
Right.
When do you persevere and when do you maybe need to change course?
That's a really good question.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process.
It is. And, there's no easy answer, but it's something we all have to grapple with.
Totally.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Always fun.
And keep those excerpts coming.
Yeah, keep them coming.